Fact number 1. NASA helped make it uncomfortably real. When Apollo 13 went into production, director Ron Howard wasn't interested in making just another space movie. He wanted absolute realism, the kind that would make audiences feel like they were trapped inside a failing spacecraft. To achieve this, NASA gave the filmmakers unprecedented access to their facilities, including real training modules and technical data that had never been shared with Hollywood before. But what made things truly extraordinary was the decision to film actual weightlessness scenes using NASA's Vomit Comet, a modified aircraft that simulates zero gravity for brief periods. The cast, including Tom Hanks, endured over 600 parabolic flights, experiencing real disorientation and nausea just to capture authentic reactions. What audiences didn't know was that this process pushed actors and crew to their physical limits, with many getting sick between takes. The result, however, was groundbreaking. The film didn't just look real, it felt terrifyingly real, immersing viewers in the fragile reality of space travel like never before. Fact number 2. Tom Hanks was obsessed with accuracy. Tom Hanks didn't just play astronaut Jim Lovell, he became him. Long before filming began, Hanks immersed himself in the real story, meeting the actual astronaut Jim Lovell and studying every detail of the mission. He memorized technical jargon, practiced cockpit procedures, and even adopted Lovell's calm, measured way of speaking under pressure. But his dedication went far beyond preparation. During filming, Hanks insisted on performing scenes with complete technical accuracy, often correcting minor details in dialogue or movements to ensure authenticity. This perfectionism sometimes slowed production, but it elevated the film's credibility to another level. What audiences didn't know was that Hanks carried the emotional weight of the mission as well, deeply connecting with the fear and responsibility Lovell felt while leading his crew through a life-threatening crisis. His performance wasn't just acting, it was a tribute. This obsession with realism helped transform Apollo 13 into one of the most convincing space dramas ever made, where every line, every breath, and every decision felt painfully real. The most iconic moment in Apollo 13 is the sudden oxygen tank explosion that changes everything. But recreating that moment wasn't easy. It was one of the most technically challenging scenes in the entire film. Director Ron Howard refused to rely heavily on CGI, which was still limited in the mid-1990s. Instead, he pushed his team to create practical effects that would feel raw and believable. The crew built detailed spacecraft models and used controlled explosions, combined with precise camera work to simulate the chaos. Inside the cabin, actors had to react in real time while being thrown around in zero-gravity conditions during parabolic flights. What audiences didn't know was how dangerous and unpredictable these shoots could be, with timing needing to be perfect to avoid injury and capture the right shot. The tension you see on screen isn't just acting. It's real stress from actors trying to stay in character while everything around them literally falls apart. That authenticity turned a single line, "Houston, we have a problem," into one of the most unforgettable moments in cinematic history. Despite its reputation for realism, Apollo 13 didn't escape criticism, especially from people who had actually lived through similar missions. Some real NASA astronauts felt that certain scenes were dramatized for Hollywood effect, particularly moments where tension between crew members appeared heightened. While the film aimed to create emotional stakes, actual astronauts argued that professionalism and calm teamwork were more dominant during real crises. What audiences didn't know was that this criticism sparked debate about the balance between storytelling and truth. Director Ron Howard defended his choices, explaining that slight dramatization was necessary to convey the intensity of the situation to a general audience. Still, many astronauts praised the film for its technical accuracy and respectful portrayal of space exploration. The controversy didn't damage the film, it enhanced its legacy, showing just how closely it mirrored reality. In the end, Apollo 13 stood as both a gripping Hollywood drama and a powerful tribute to human resilience under unimaginable pressure. One of the most iconic lines in cinematic history, "Houston, we have a problem," didn't actually happen that way in real life. During the real Apollo 13 mission, astronaut Jack Swigert reported the issue by saying, "Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here." It was later repeated by Jim Lovell. But for the film Apollo 13, director Ron Howard made a deliberate decision to tweak the wording. The revised line sounded more immediate, more dramatic, and easier for audiences to remember. What audiences didn't know was that this small change sparked debate among historians and space enthusiasts, some arguing it distorted history. However, the adjustment worked perfectly for storytelling. The line became legendary, quoted across generations, and even referenced in pop culture countless times. It's a perfect example of how Hollywood sometimes reshapes reality, not to mislead, but to amplify emotional impact and create unforgettable cinematic moments. The interior of the spacecraft in Apollo 13 wasn't just inspired by NASA. It was obsessively recreated down to the smallest detail. Production designers worked closely with engineers and historical archives to rebuild the command module with near-perfect precision. Every switch, label, and panel was placed exactly where it would have been during the real 1970 mission. Actors had to memorize not just lines, but the exact positions of controls, making their performances feel authentic and grounded. What audiences didn't know was how claustrophobic and uncomfortable the set actually was. The cramped design wasn't exaggerated, it was real. Filming inside such tight spaces made movement difficult and increased tension among the cast, adding to the realism on screen. Tom Hanks even mentioned that the physical discomfort helped him understand the stress astronauts endured. This level of detail didn't just enhance visuals, it allowed the audience to experience the suffocating confinement and pressure of being trapped in space. While filming zero-gravity scenes for Apollo 13, actor Kevin Bacon had an experience that went far beyond acting. Inside the Vomit Comet, where gravity disappears for short bursts, Bacon reportedly struggled with intense disorientation and panic. Unlike some of his co-stars, his body didn't adapt easily to the unnatural sensation of floating uncontrollably. During several takes, he became visibly anxious, trying to maintain composure while the camera rolled. What audiences didn't know was that this wasn't scripted, it was real fear. Director Ron Howard chose to keep many of these moments in the final cut because they added authenticity to the crew's reactions. Bacon later admitted that the experience gave him a newfound respect for astronauts, realizing just how mentally and physically demanding space travel truly is. That genuine discomfort translated into a performance that felt raw, unpredictable, and incredibly human. The mission control sequences in Apollo 13 are so realistic that many viewers assumed they were filmed in the original NASA control room. While parts of the real facility were used, most scenes were shot on meticulously constructed sets designed to replicate the 1970 environment perfectly. From outdated computer screens to ashtrays on desks, every detail reflected the era's atmosphere. What audiences didn't know was that the production team even studied old footage and photographs frame by frame to ensure historical accuracy. Actors playing flight directors, including Ed Harris, underwent training to understand real mission protocols, learning how to communicate with precision and urgency. The pressure you see isn't just acting, it's the result of actors being fully immersed in a system that demanded discipline and focus. This attention to detail transformed mission control into more than just a set. It became a living, breathing character in the story. When Apollo 13 was released, no one expected it to have an impact beyond entertainment. But something surprising happened. The film reignited public fascination with space exploration, especially among younger audiences who had never experienced the original mission. NASA began noticing a steady increase in interest, with more students expressing a desire to pursue careers in engineering, physics, and astronaut training. What audiences didn't know was that the film indirectly became a recruitment tool, inspiring a new generation to dream about space. Educators even started using scenes from the movie to teach problem-solving and teamwork under pressure. Ron Howard later said he was overwhelmed by the response, realizing the story had transcended cinema. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It became about human ingenuity and hope. The legacy of Apollo 13 didn't end with the credits. It quietly influenced real-world ambition in ways no one predicted. Eagle-eyed viewers of Apollo 13 might notice a subtle but powerful detail near the end of the film. The real astronaut Jim Lovell, whose story inspired the entire movie, appears in a brief cameo role. He plays the captain of the recovery ship that greets the returning astronauts after their harrowing journey. It's a symbolic moment, blending fiction with reality in a way that most audiences completely missed. What audiences didn't know was how meaningful this appearance was to the production. Lovell had spent years reliving the mission through interviews and books, but standing on set and watching his story come to life brought a new emotional weight. Tom Hanks, who portrayed Lovell, reportedly felt honored sharing that moment with the real man himself. This quiet cameo served as a tribute, not just to Lovell, but to the real heroes behind one of NASA's most dramatic missions. Creating Apollo 13 with such obsessive realism came at a cost, literally. The production budget began to stretch dangerously as director Ron Howard insisted on practical effects, real locations, and authentic zero-gravity sequences instead of relying heavily on visual effects. The repeated flights on the Vomit Comet alone added significant expense, as each short burst of weightlessness required careful coordination and multiple takes. What audiences didn't know was that studio executives grew increasingly concerned about rising costs, fearing the film might not recover its investment. There were moments when compromises were suggested, but Howard refused to sacrifice authenticity. He believed that cutting corners would weaken the emotional impact of the story. That gamble paid off. The film not only became a critical success but also performed strongly at the box office. In the end, the risk of overspending turned into one of the film's greatest strengths. One of the most underrated elements of Apollo 13 is its sound design, which plays a crucial role in building tension. Instead of relying on loud, dramatic music, the filmmakers often used silence, subtle mechanical noises, and distant communication echoes to create a sense of isolation. Every beep, every static-filled transmission was carefully engineered to reflect the fragile state of the spacecraft. What audiences didn't know was how intentional this approach was. Sound designers studied real NASA recordings to replicate the exact audio environment astronauts would hear in space. Ron Howard wanted viewers to feel the emptiness and danger, not just see it. The result is a psychological experience where even the quiet moments feel overwhelming. This careful manipulation of sound keeps viewers on edge, making the crisis feel immediate and personal. It's a subtle technique, but one that deeply enhances the film's emotional power.